Welcome! It's Easter. He is risen. The tomb is empty. Welcome to Easter worship. I'm Sarah Haldeman Scar, and I pastor the First Church of the Brethren of San Diego, located at 3850 West Gate Place. We are a congregation that comes together out of the Anabaptist faith tradition, and we believe that Jesus is the center of our faith. Community is the center of our life. Reconciliation is the center of our work. And we embody those three values as we work for justice and as we provide hospitality. I'm glad we're together this morning as we celebrate the resurrection of Jesus. Easter's different this year, isn't it? It almost snuck up on you in some respects. I find myself missing the community that we usually share on Easter Sunday morning, that ability to shake hands or share hugs. This year, it's just not able to happen. And I mourn the loss of the community that we share. As I tape this service, I recognize that we won't be able to see each other. We won't share in the beauty of the flower cross or sing the joyful songs like "Lo, in the grave he lays" or "Christ the Lord has risen today," and all those other Easter morning favorites that we usually sing. And yet, perhaps in the movement from the beginning of Mark's gospel and his good news of the gospel of Jesus Christ to the grief and the confusion and the fear and the unsettled silence of today's text, we can find a hope of resurrection, and we can connect it to our own grief, our own confusion, our own fear, our own unsettledness, and our own desires to find an Easter celebration. Welcome to Easter worship, where the hope of resurrection and the empty tomb is shaded in the unknown. This has been a period of physical separation, and it's really been hard. It's been a time of fear, a time of not knowing, a time of silence. And we know the experience of anguish that those women who were walking to the tomb so many years ago to care for someone they loved, we know that anguish as we try to care for others that we just can't be in contact with. We know that anxiety from our own context. And I know we have missed each other. Oftentimes our Sunday morning presence helps keep us connected. It helps us clarify what's going on in each other's life and how we can be together and pray for each other. I look forward to these online times in worship because I know you will see my face and I can feel your support as we gather here together. In the moments we share together, we are a family of God, connected in the love and spirit of Jesus. We are supporting each other as sisters and brothers of the faith, trying to help each other through this messiness of our day. Our voices of support and care are really important right now. Let's share our voices of love now, as we have come to do in this season of Lent and in this time of physical isolation, but spiritual connection. Think of somebody you haven't heard from this week, or maybe haven't heard from for a couple of weeks. They, like you, are struggling and trying to feel connected with each other. Who's the first person that comes to your mind? Get that person in your mind and think about them. Stop the video if you want right here and give them a call, or send them an email or write them a letter. Share a voice of love with them to let them know that they're not alone, that you are reaching out to them and trying your best to connect with them. Maybe listen to a story about their week. Hear what has happened for them this week. Keeping connected. Together we will make it through this trying time. And then when you're finished hearing that story or writing that letter or making that phone call, come on back. We'll be here waiting. In this season of Lent, we have found our centering for prayer in a breath prayer. Been breathing in that love of God and breathing out that sense of security. So today, our breath prayer, I'm inviting us to share the breath prayer of He is risen. The tomb is empty. And I invite us to participate as we have been, breathing in and on the He is risen, and then breathing out, the tomb is empty. And breathing in that confidence and feeling yourself ground and root in the confidence of the empty tomb. Let's share in this prayer together. He is risen. The tomb is empty. He is risen. The tomb is empty. He is risen. The tomb is empty. One more time. He is risen. The tomb is empty. Join me in prayer as we continue with our healing thoughts. God of power, God of mystery, God of surprise, God of amazement, God of fear, God of confusion, God of unsettled feelings. We come to you on this Easter morning, recognizing that we find all of those within ourselves, that we come seeking peace, seeking wholeness, seeking new life. Easter takes us by surprise in the morning. It unfolds in so many different ways, and this year it's unfolding in yet another. Those things that we expect to block us somehow can be opened and thrown wide before we even known it. When our life erupts from those things that trouble us, and we might experience death or despair, when life erupts with that confusion and unsettling, help us to find peace, to seek the security of what our faith tells us. On this day, which recognizes and names Jesus' resurrection and an empty tomb, when the surprises of our context and our life lead to fear and silence, roll away the stone of confusion so that we might find clarity. Roll away the stone of fear that we might find courage. Roll away the stone of sickness that we might find health. Roll away the stone of doubt that we might find faith. Roll away the stone of silence so that we might proclaim the hope of resurrection and new life. Roll away and open us to the gift that Easter holds, the gift of hope in the promise of Jesus' resurrection. In the name of God, our Easter Savior, hear our prayer. Amen. This year, we've been following the Gospel of Mark with the narrative lectionary. So today, this Easter, our text comes from the short ending of Mark, chapter 16, verses 1 through 8. When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James, and Salome bought spices so that they could go out and anoint him. And very early on the first day of the week, when the sun had risen, they went to the tomb. They had been saying to one another, "Who will roll away the stone for us from the entrance to the tomb?" And when they looked, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had already been rolled back. As they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. But he said to them, "Do not be alarmed. You are looking for Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He has been raised. He's not here. Look, there is the place where they laid him. But go, tell his disciples and Peter that he is going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him, just as he told you." So they went out and fled from the tomb, for terror and amazement had seized them, and they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. It seems appropriate to be considering the Markan story of the resurrection that ends with such fear and amazement, uncertainty, and silence. It is unsettling. We are used to empty tombs. We're used to resurrection meetings. We're used to stories of breakfast on the beach and garden visitations and the assurance of a bodily sighting. And in Mark, what do we get? Not any of that. The women expecting to anoint Jesus are walking to the tomb wondering who's going to open the tomb, who's going to roll that stone away for them, and how are they going to get entrance into Jesus' space. And they were surprised by what they saw and what they encountered. It was unexpected. They saw the angel. It was unexpected. Do not be afraid. Unexpected. The angel recaps what they see and invites them to see the unbelievable. Unexpected. They're told to tell those what they've seen, that unbelievable. And again, how do you do that? It's unexpected. And the women flee the tomb, and their final words of this shorter ending of Mark are, along the way, they didn't stop to say anything to anyone. They were afraid. Fear and silence. Unexpected. There's no comforting presence of a resurrected Jesus. There's no breakfast on the beach. There's no room where the disciples have gathered and Jesus enters to share his physical presence with them. There's no touch. There's none of that. The end of Mark, there is confusion, fear, an unsettling feeling of silence. How can this be true? They might ask. How do we go on? Where is Jesus? Why am I terrified? What have I lost? And the angel's words of "do not fear" are long forgotten. And they flee. Those women flee, overcome with terror and amazement. And the Gospel of Mark closes with this unsatisfying, unsettling story, incomplete in some ways. And with all of that unknown, there is this kernel of hope. Let us not forget that in those unsettling times, the fear, the wondering, the confusion, in those times, there is the kernel of hope. The Gospel of Mark closes with that hope that we can find an empty tomb. The grave is empty, no matter how fearful we are, then or now. The tomb is empty. No matter how uncertain we are about what the future holds, the tomb is empty. And that's the Easter story. That's what we celebrate. We are not gathered around an Easter cross this year. We are not singing hymns of typical Easter celebration. Our choir isn't singing. We didn't have an Easter extravaganza. Yet there is silence. And when I began with "He is risen," there is silence. And yes, there is fear. Because where we are and what we are dealing with is beyond all of us and can affect all of us. We don't know what tomorrow holds. And yes, we have no assurances even that tomorrow is ours. The tomb is empty. We do know that. We do know that it is empty. The angel confirms it. The women hold it in silence. The tomb is empty. And the resurrection of Jesus is seen and proclaimed in every season of every year from then to now. The moon shines and the sun shines, and the moon follows the sun, or the sun follows the moon in that cycle. And there is ending and there is beginning. And each day there is newness, and each night there is newness, and that's resurrection. The cycle of life and death present in the falling of leaves, in the coming of snow, in the barrenness of winter, in the emergence of the daffodil or the hyacinth, in the beauty of the lily. The tomb is empty. Easter has come. The resurrection of Jesus seems like acts of kindness that we see around us. The passing of a friend ready to go home to be with God. The nurses that care for those who are infirmed or struggling to breathe in the ICU. The sharing of toilet paper, my goodness, with a friend is a sign of hope and resurrection. A phone call that fills a lonely day. The tomb is empty, and there's a very small light at the end of this COVID virus. The peak is just weeks away, and every season, for every season, Easter comes alive. There is a season. There is resurrection. The tomb is empty. That is the fact of faith. The tomb is empty. Jesus is alive in every season, in every day, in every fear, in every silence, in every uncertainty, in every way of life. The tomb is empty. And that, my friends, is the celebration of Easter. That, my friends, is where we find our hope in those unsettling times of life. Here's a special piece of music sung by Emily. Em and Jake went back to Cleveland to be with family and friends during this time, but she sent this piece of music to share with us today.
Every evening sky, an invitation to trace the pattern stars. And early in July, a celebration for freedom that is ours. And I notice you in children's games, in those who watch them from the shade. Every drop of sun is full of fun and wonder. You are summer. And even when the trees have just surrendered to the harvest time, forfeiting their leaves in late September and sending us inside, still I notice you when change begins, and I am braced for colder winds. I will offer thanks for what has been and what's to come. You are autumn. And everything in time and under heaven finally falls asleep, wrapped in blankets white, all creation shivers underneath, And I notice you when branches crack, and in my breath on frosted glass. Even now in death you open doors for life to enter. You are winter, and everything that's new has bravely surfaced, teaching us to breathe. And what was frozen through is newly purposed, turning all things green. So it is with you, and how you make me new with every season's change. And so it will be, as you are recreating me. Summer, autumn, winter, spring.
Receive the good news. Jesus is alive. The tomb is empty. Jesus is risen from the dead. In these uncertain times, share the uncertainty in faith. The tomb is empty. And we live by that fact of faith, and we are free to be hopeful in these unsettling times. We are free to celebrate. Jesus is alive. Easter has come. Happy Easter, my friends. Happy Easter. Praying for you, loving you from afar. Amen.